Lior, Lucci, Ben, and Eddie. Today, we are going to talk about this idea of holons and how we can use this model to help us map the ecosystem of which we live and work in, and how ecosystems are made up of many parts. And in order to better understand where we are in that ecosystem, we have to understand the parts that we relate to. So that's the topic we're tackling today. I'm going to toss it over to Lior to talk a little bit more about what this idea of holons looks like.
So holons means whole parts. The idea behind holons is that the world is comprised of small things that come together to make larger things and larger things and larger things. But those small things themselves are not missing anything, right? So if you were to look at a water molecule, for example, we know that it's composed of hydrogen and oxygen atoms. You would not look at that water molecule and say, well, that water molecule is incomplete. You might want a lot of them if you're thirsty, but it is a whole and complete thing comprised of atoms, which are they themselves whole and complete things. And if we think about ourselves as individuals, our bodies are made of systems, our pulmonary system, cardiac system, etc. Those systems are comprised of organs, which are whole and complete, which are comprised by cells, which are also whole and complete and have their own needs and their own kind of deterministic fates. You've got skin cells, bone cells, etc. So this creates the individual. And as we might have spoken about it, and you might have heard it in a previous video, the integral agile approach is designed around the health of the foundational holon. You cannot have a healthy organ if your cells are sick. So you cannot have a healthy team if the individuals who comprise the team are unwell. So holons are about thinking about things in a whole manner, and really trying to understand the entire system as comprised of things that are simultaneously parts and wholes.
Lior, can you describe each of the holons from the organizational point of view, based on the image that you presented?
Sure. Yeah. So if we're looking organizationally, if you're an individual who's a member of a team, then that's pretty simple, right? That everybody understands that. When teams become a holon in their own right, and teams have their own drives, they have their own needs, they have their own cultures. And oftentimes in modern software development, particularly in large enterprise, multiple teams need to collaborate together. And they form into groups of teams. There's even a concept in very large enterprise of teams, which things get to start they get a little bit crazy there. And then teams of teams, in addition to various supporting services, form organizations, lines of business, technology platforms, and those various different lines of business obviously themselves have their own needs, their own P&L, their own budgets. And those, if you're in a large enterprise, come under the umbrella of the enterprise itself.
And what are the main connections between those holons?
So you've got holons that are upper and lower. So you'll have your individuals that form a team, and then you'll have holons that are on the same level that are peers, right? So you'll need teams. If you've got teams collaborating together, even if they're not organized in the team of team construct, they will likely be dependent on each other. And they will likely need to collaborate together. But anything can be a holon. Agile itself is comprised of holons. The user story, the concept of a user story as being an investable thing, is a holonic concept. User stories going into features, going into initiatives, projects, whatever you want to call them.
I have a question here because this came up before. Does the team of teams holon, do they need to meet in order for that holon to exist? It's kind of like if a tree falls in a forest and no one's around to hear it, do they make a sound? Because I've had situations where I've worked with teams and they've had cross dependencies with other teams, and maybe they should have been meeting in a scrum of scrums every few weeks, but they weren't. Do holons still exist even if they're not kind of being acted on in that sense?
Well, I'm actually curious though, because that's an interesting concept. because I mean, you could ignore the fact that they exist or be aware and then just not do anything about it.
I
And so,
used it as an argument once, where we were moving towards from from component teams to feature teams, and I had to let them know if there is a feature team who is a group of people who are all working on a feature simultaneously, then that team exists even if they don't share a daily. You know what I mean? So just saying we don't do feature teams and we don't have feature team meetings, we don't have feature team scrum masters, doesn't mean the team doesn't exist. It just means that you've got a cross-dependent team who you've decided the best step for them is to have them never meet with each other and not have any communication channels with each other.
What is that thing that is like necessary to exist for that team to exist, even if they don't communicate between each other?
Well, that's my question, whether they do or not. So say, for example, you're working on a new marketing project. It doesn't have to be in IT, right? You're working on bringing out YouTube videos, and you have to have one person who's a legal guy who makes sure we're not saying anything illegal or breaking any copyright laws. You need someone who is uploading the videos, someone from marketing, someone from sales who's looking over it. These people are technically a team. We're working together on creating something, right? Mm-hmm. And they should probably meet every once in a while. And you could say these are a team. They meet every day. They talk about it. They put out the videos. Someone else could say, actually, no, we have a marketing team. We have a legal team. And these people never talk to each other. And there's chaos and it doesn't work very well, right? And the question is, because if the organization doesn't acknowledge them as a team, open up any collaboration tools between them, open up any meetings between them, open up any kind of communication channels, even just a Slack channel where they can share thoughts, are they still a team? Because they still have a common goal and they still are working on a common project, but they're not being kind of recognized, so to say.
I have like real life experience with this. And Eddie, I love that question because I've worked in teams of teams where they really should have been talking to each other and then they wonder why things aren't working. It's kind of like building, I don't know, like expecting to like build a Lego castle, but nothing ever clicks together properly. It's just going to fall apart eventually if you're not actually making the connections literally between either the parts or for teams. And when teams weren't communicating, then there was mass miscommunication, delays, and even though they were supposed to be functioning as team of teams, they still functioned as just individual teams and did not consider the ecosystem that they were working in. And then once we brought a mindfulness to what the other teams needed from each other, then there was a level of communication that allowed a flow of information that was actually valuable, and we were able to produce things. But until we recognized, oh, there's a need from this team from us, and they need XYZ and vice versa, then we're actually able to have a conversation and make that click between the pieces. But I see this happen all the time.
So I think we've established kind of the holonic structure and what a holon is. And I think we will address this question more in other videos. But as a bit of a taster, what's the use of knowing that holons exist? What's the use of this organization? How does it help us go about our daily work?
We just gave two examples, I feel like, right? Which is knowing that they exist can act as a reminder to look a level up and a level down. I mean, Lior started by saying if we're in a team and it's dysfunctional and we're not looking a level down to look at the health of the individuals, then we might never realize that our issues are on an individual level, not a team level. And if we don't look a level up, like I said, with these team of teams who are not meeting, and Alana gave the example of, if you're not aware of these levels above and below, then you might run into really serious issues that you're trying to fix a problem that's not on the level you're trying to fix it at. So I think holons are just an important step for kind of checking in with yourself and saying, I'm looking at this here. Should I also pay a little bit respect to look up here, look down here, and, you know, look both ways when you cross the road, right? That's the point of holons, in my opinion.
I like that analogy, Eddie. I think a lot of times with people too, not just teams, it's so easy to be concerned with what it is that is on your to-do list or what you think you need to accomplish. And I've been in places where teams almost compete for like who's going to get what done first, but they both depend on each other. So they're just shooting themselves in the foot. They're like, well, we need this first from you. Like, no, but we need this from you first. And it's like an argument, but they're building the same thing and they don't realize they're holding up the entire project. So what I've done with teams is work on like, well, if we talk to what they need from us, and then we get that kind of like information contract to understand what is it that we need to move forward. It's a much different conversation than just pointing fingers on like why we're delayed, because I've seen that so often. And I feel like, Ben, your question is what's the point? I feel like it's almost like forget the term holons. It's just kind of just being more aware of that. Okay, I know I have this thing in front of me that I need to do, but there are things that other areas that other people or teams might need from me as well. And I need to be mindful of that if I want to create a more harmonious system wherever I am.
Sure, seeing things as whole and understanding what's the most important thing, but you hit the nail on the head about the pain that people are in today, in that they're all locally optimizing and they're not looking at what they're a part of.
And we see that too with like the systems that we use, even like talk about tooling, like Leo, the tooling that we use is naturally holonic, things feed into each other. But if you look at that and then you span like the concept of tooling across team of teams, if one team is using the tool one way and another is using it the other way, and you're trying to pull data, it's just not going to be as effective as anyone would want to be. The data won't be there. So I think this idea of holons and this idea of parts feeding into other parts to make a whole, it's not just with team of teams. You could see it anywhere in life, but tooling as well. So that really wraps up for today. So if there are no other thoughts, we're going to end it there. We'd love to hear what you have to say about holons, your own experience. If you realize that you've been working in this way already and you just didn't have a word like holon to use, like let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And that is all. Thank you, Lior, Lucci, Ben, and Eddie. We will see you next time.